button.
Hi, I'm Trevor.
And I'm Jill. This is Trevor and Jill Talk.
Yeah, we're really excited today. We're at Erica Hochman's office in Westport, and we're going to be talking about collaborative divorce, which is going to be really interesting. I have a lot to learn.
Fascinating.
Yes.
And a great idea for a lot of people.
Great idea. A lot of people will like this. Before we jump into the divorce discussion, though, we really want to talk about some news. Mm-hmm. And one of the big things that we got a lot of traction on both of our personal pages on Facebook this weekend was Serena Williams.
Wow. Everybody seems to have an opinion on that, on Serena and on Naomi Osaka, the eventual champion. And the big controversy, of course, was the umpire just going overboard? Was this a matter of gender discrimination? And what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not okay with any bad behavior, and Serena has a point. She's pointed something out that is true, and I think some of the great players, including who's even come out and supported her already.
Well, Billie Jean King has actually,
but yeah, so the sport really has allowed for men to be badly behaved and crash their rackets and scream and yell. Of course, McEnroe, great.
Yeah, he's like sort of the quintessential example, but that's a very long time ago that he had his day. But I go to a lot of tennis matches. I love it, and I've seen a lot of smashed rackets over the years, and I've never seen a game taken away. Men.
So women.
I've seen women with really bad tempers and eventual champions with really bad tempers. I have such mixed feelings on this. I feel like she opened the door for all this to happen, and she just really started to get so emotional and lose this a bit. But he seemed to go way overboard. There's a lot of people who say that she used to have a very good relationship with him, but she's had a lot of issues at the U.S. Open. She's had a lot of things recently, like she's not allowed to wear her cat suit, which ostensibly is to help her control blood clots, that she gets dangerous blood clots. And so I think she was just sort of at the edge and felt pushed really hard. But it was really...
I felt very badly for Osaka.
Me too.
You know, we've got all of this conversation about Serena and sexism and bad behavior. But this young woman just won a huge, big deal. And we're sort of not paying enough attention to her.
And was hysterically crying.
Yeah.
Not in a happy way.
I know.
She was being booed by the crowd. Which
awful.
Is just so awful. She did nothing to precipitate that.
Yeah.
She played extremely well, and she just seemed, and Serena was her idol, and I'm sure in her wildest dreams she couldn't even imagine playing her in the finals, and that it came down to this. So it was such a sad but amazingly fascinating live TV, and this is where live TV can never be replaced, or live Facebook shows, because you never know what's going to happen.
It's true.
I'm watching this, and I couldn't even believe what was unfolding. So I do think there was some degree of sexism. I do.
And bad behavior's not okay. Anyway, so moving on.
Big topic, though.
One of our faves are the men that we had crushes on as children.
Or that we were talking about right before the
passed
show.
away, Burt Reynolds.
Yes.
You posted his quintessential centerfold.
Can I tell you, I remember with my sister looking at that thing like this, because it didn't really show anything. It showed kind of everything but. And we thought, we didn't really know anything, so we were like, is that it? Or what's going on here? But I literally think we had that thing pressed to our noses.
It's just adorable. And I love the word. The word of the week for me has been insouciant. Because it's the
grin.
Yeah, the insouciant grin. He was just so adorable and just...
Well, isn't that one of the most attractive things about a guy? Is somebody who has that twinkle in their eye. They don't have to look like that. They don't have to, be made of millions, but they do need that twinkle, I think.
Oh, and he sure brought it. So, rest in peace, Burt
Oh,
Reynolds.
he was so great, though. He actually was such a great actor. And lovely. So many people commented on how much hair he had on his body, but I never really thought about that because I don't think men need to be hairless.
Well, don't you think today in manscaping land, a lot of men have a lot less hair? Just saying.
They do, but I guess it just doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Me neither.
I mean, he didn't turn around.
Anyway, so other big news of the week was this New York Times op-ed, anonymous writing about the White House right on the back of Bob Woodward's book, Fear.
Which 1 million copies have been published.
Wow. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. What's happening in the White House? Are we actually safe as a nation if a bunch of the people in there are trying to make sure that he doesn't act on sort of crazy impulses and they're sort of running around picking paper
You're
up
about to
his
sign
desk?
this, and I'm like, could I take this away?
So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's terrifying. I think it's a horrible precedent, and yet I think that there's probably so many things we've been saved from.
Yeah.
I don't know what we don't know, but I think that if if this level of person who's working for him is removing things to be signed, or the military, this is what is
The
really
scary
scary.
part,
The military is saying, "Oh, sure, Mr. President," and then not following the orders. Now, in another time, that would be extremely.
That'd be a treason.
It would be treason. It would be terrifying, and yet it seems that we're all hearing this and saying, like, "Oh, good." I don't know. We're in a new frontier.
Don't you believe this person should have written in with their name and resigned if that's really what they're doing?
Yes, but I think that person has convinced themselves that they're doing some good, or they're too scared of repercussions. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll be found out.
It'll be found out. And Florence, any updates on Florence? Do we know anything new? It's bearing down on the coast, North Carolina coast as we speak.
They say it's like millions of people have been evacuated,
Millions of
right?
people, yeah.
I'm terrified for them in all those beautiful cities.
So we're
there.
thinking of you. Everybody stay safe, right?
And I hope, and I've already I got a letter this
Uh-huh.
morning that Save the Children's already working to respond.
wow.
And I hope our
Nice.
government responds better than they
Yeah.
did in Puerto Rico, and I bet they do.
I hope so. I hope so. So the last thing of news, and then we're going to get to collaborative divorce, but we're both excited about the Lady Gaga, Bradley Cooper remake of A Star is Born.
I am dying.
When does it open?
Oh, I think it opens late October.
She got a standing ovation at
Yeah.
this film festival.
For so long. It's supposed to be so fantastic. It's such a great story. Anyways, and then I was reading that he also spent a year and a half learning how to be a great singer, play guitar and piano. He composed songs. I think this one, I think you actually is going to be sold out.
We're going to
Like there'll be times it'll be, people are going to get to the theater, but
And
I
stay.
can't wait.
Yeah, that'll be
Yay.
fun. All right, so now to the really juicy, most important topic of the day. We've got my dear friend Erica Hochman. We are in her beautiful office right now, and we're going to learn a little bit about collaborative divorce because she has been teaching me, and I do have a lot of clients, unfortunately, that do end up needing this process.
And we all have a lot of friends. This is actually really, really helpful information, I think, for a lot of people.
Well, it is a new option for people in this area. It's been around forever, but when I say new, is people are just discovering it. So it is an alternative to divorce that really helps people.
All right, so starting with you, just get a little background. How did you become, what brought you to become a lawyer, and how did you end up in the collaborative divorce world?
Well, I went into law to help people, believe it or not, even if people have a hard time believing that with lawyers.
You know, we need help.
And I did a lot of domestic violence work before law school and really felt passionately about it, and then went into family law and found that most cases of divorce were fought tooth and nail along the way and then would eventually settle. And I was also trained in mediation, and I really believed that that was a viable option for people, and learned about collaborative divorce and got trained in collaborative divorce, and it was just a natural progression of the practice in family law to collaborative.
Does it
in
kind of
terms
fall
holding
somewhere in
law.
between mediation and
Yeah, just give us a few differences.
Litigation.
Mediation, litigation
Sure.
on one end, and collaborative in the middle.
Yeah, so
Okay.
mediation is, I think a lot of people are familiar with. It is a mediator and a husband and a wife, and the mediator basically helps them come to a determination as to how to resolve certain issues in their divorce, in their marriage that is falling apart. Oftentimes they are not attorneys, so then an attorney has to get involved to draft it, and then they need review counsel. And they're making these decisions in a relatively uninformed process.
Do most people go to a mediator because the cost is lower, or because they think they can work it out pretty easily, or?
I think it's a combination of those two things. I think people want to spend as little amount of money as possible sometimes, and sometimes they don't have the money to spend. And if that's the case, then that is a good option for them to help resolve their issues. And people also go because they think they can resolve those issues and know better. And they find out that maybe a little bit after the process and after they've settled their divorce, that maybe that wasn't the best thing for them to be doing because it wasn't as
Painful.
informed.
Right, painful. So, okay, so the difference with collaborative divorce, as I understand it, is it's a team of four people. Or you're a lawyer,
Yes.
mental health professional, and a financial neutral.
Yes, and the mental health professional is also a neutral, and it's a team approach to divorce. So everybody has their own advocate, and we sit down as a team to help the couple resolve their issues and work on their goals. The mental health professional helps with the parenting plan and keeps a certain sense of respect throughout the whole process and keeps it moving forward. Oftentimes things will stall,
Right.
and somebody who's trained as a coach, because the mental health professional plays the role of a coach in the process as well, it keeps everything moving forward and in a respectful manner. They collect a lot of information from the parents as well, and that's when it's a parenting situation. When it's not a parenting situation, as I said before, it helps the process move forward and keeps things on target of not falling apart if it becomes slightly more contentious.
That really sounds amazing. So if somebody calls you and says, I want to do this, and I want you to be my advocate,
Yes.
what does their spouse do? Is there someone you recommend, or how do they find somebody that is the equal, that works in this situation?
Right. So there are tons of collaboratively trained attorneys in the area. Obviously, there are people you like working with better just because of certain dynamic and practice style. I prefer to work with somebody who is a true collaborative attorney and embraces it. A very crucial part of the collaborative process is the collaborative agreement that you sign. You sign an agreement that says we are not going to litigate this matter and we're going to work this out, and we can represent you only so long as this process goes on. If this process fails, we cannot represent you in court. Any of the information that has been retrieved in this process is confidential, and this really makes a huge distinction between litigation and mediation. We cannot represent them in court, so we as attorneys and advocates are equally invested in their success,
Right.
and making sure that they get what they need from the process. And it opens up the flow of information as well. When there's no threat that this is going to be used against you in court, people are a lot more likely to talk freely, be supportive of one another, and it's really beautiful, the transition that you can see couples going through from when they first come in, where they don't know what's going to happen, there's a lot of emotion involved, to the end process when they walk away as either divorced and being separate, or being successful co-parents from a spousal relationship to a co-parenting relationship. And it allows everyone to move forward in the process and not be stuck in the past. And we've talked about that, Trevor and I have spoken about that.
Well, it can be really damaging to your family, to your children, to your future relationships if you go through a really tough litigated high conflict process where people end up feeling bruised and angry, and it's hard to get over it, and your kids are affected. Your future relationship is affected by it because your ex is angry and will continue to be angry at you, and you have to deal with your children for the rest of your life. So it makes a lot more sense to go through something that is much more team building, and the mission from the beginning is not to punish one another, but to work it out in the best way possible for everybody involved. So litigation, I believe the lawyers know how to ratchet up the emotional anger, the upset, and it makes it more expensive, and they end up making more money.
Well, it's also a lack of communication. So in the collaborative process, everyone is able to communicate. We all sit down together. The attorneys are talking, the spouses are talking, whereas in litigation, the attorneys are talking to one another, the clients are talking to the attorneys. And if you've ever played the game of telephone, you know something is always missed
Yes.
in communication when you have the steps removed so much.
So are all of your meetings together then? I mean, do you meet alone with your
Yes.
advocate and then have these group meetings?
Yes. So there are both joint and individual meetings. There are approximately in the process, if you're trying to narrow it down to a certain time, around 5 to 6 meetings that you would all meet as a whole team.
Right.
You meet initially to sign the collaborative agreement, meet everybody, to talk about the goals, any issues that might be pressing right away. And then from there, we schedule other professional meetings. So people get to meet, the spouses get to meet with the financial neutrals who collects all the financial information and gets together the financial affidavits, and also can figure out where you want to go, and they help us tailor the settlement to the needs and the goals of the clients.
So most of the people that come in for collaborative divorce see it through.
It is a highly successful process option for people. because you have to start at ground zero again. You're not, you're gonna have to start the whole process over. So there really is a strong sense of pushing people, right, incentivizing people to work through their issues. And with the mental health professional and the financial neutral, who are neutral parties, they're not the advocates. They really help people and attorneys as well.
Right.
They explain things to attorneys. Maybe you're not recognizing a certain situation from one of the other sides.
Personally, I love that.
And so the mental health
Yeah.
professional really helps move that along and helps, if there are things, little bumps in the road, helps you process those things.
I'd
Now,
like to hear
is-
more about that. I'm sorry. About the
Um,
mental health professional
well,
role and the
from my
neutral.
perspective, as Eric was pointing out, there's two sides to every story, and usually, even in the worst behavior, there's loving intent behind it. And hopefully, if you can mine the pieces that are positive and loving, and even sometimes they're destructive, at least you can see and hear the other person's trying to do something, and maybe it's not meant to be a bad thing. They're doing something that they were hoping was going to land a little differently. So maybe the mental health professional.
What do you
can
mean?
help
What do you mean? Like they're
soothe some of that.
pushing? They want to hear some affirmation, and so they're.
Yeah, I mean, in every situation, in every couple, there's a pursuer and there's a withdrawer. The withdrawer doesn't talk, the pursuer gets ratcheted up and pursues with anger and criticism. And so what you do is you get into a negative cycle, and they both stop hearing each other, and they start blaming each other, and they come up with all these assumptions of what those behaviors mean. When actually a withdrawer just gets flooded, doesn't know how to speak his or her mind, they're just afraid to say another word, and the pursuer is just so escalated and angry and anxious, and the very thing he or she wants is the other one to show up and say, I'm here for you. But their behavior pushes the other one further down into their hole. So hopefully, at least a mental health professional can kind of like balance that story out a little bit, so
And
they
they
hear
do.
each other a little differently.
And they do, and
Mhm.
and that's also our role as attorneys. And we've been trained. All collaborative attorneys have been trained in mediation. It's kind of how the process works. And you get to rephrase things sometimes. So if maybe you're hearing it, but your client isn't hearing it, and if you rephrase it in a way that you know your client will understand it from their concern, your client could be more open to
It lands differently.
to offering something or talking differently and seeing a different perspective. And what's the real concern of the matter? Is it they just want money, or are they concerned that they're not going to have enough money to live on to retire if they stay at home with the children? They're all different things. And so really we work through the goals. It's a goal-oriented process instead of a positional process. Like, I want the house. That's a position. Why do you want the house? Well, I really want to create a stable environment for my children, so everything else is moving. That's the one thing I feel would be a constant in their life. Okay, well, that's a goal. And we can work with that then. But when you just say, I want this, or I need this, there's an underlying reason, like Trevor was saying, and the process really allows for that to be seen, talked about, and hopefully resolved.
I think this sounds so good.
So much
I mean,
better.
how often are people in some kind of a supportive environment when they're doing this? And especially as relates to the children. Now, you were saying a big part of this is to be able to be co-parent. So how does that get worked out in collaborative divorce?
Well, again, it's the goal. What is your goal? And most people who have children, the goal is the best interest of the children. And so we start with that, and we oftentimes come back to that. And when you're going through the process and having a parenting plan that works for both parents, even if you have a challenging parent, somebody who might have an issue involved, an anger issue, well, maybe we talk about having them attend anger management classes, things along those lines that we can tailor to each individual family. Whereas if you go to court and go to a judge, the judge might not see that there's a real issue. And in this process, it doesn't really matter what the
take that
judge,
time.
or take the time or get a third party involved that doesn't necessarily represent what you think is in the best interest of your children. And it really allows you to structure things that work for you and your family. Seeing the children more, maybe seeing the children longer times in the summer. There are all different things that you can work on and be creative with throughout the process that other processes don't allow for.
I also like that you were talking about the financial professional and how that is a neutral financial professional, and that each lawyer doesn't have to do that. In addition, it saves on
It does
cost
save on
in
the
some
cost
ways.
and time. You have one person who is collecting all the financial information so that the attorneys aren't double charging on both ends.
And they're really Switzerland. This
Yes, they
financial
are really
professional.
Switzerland. And the nice thing about it is that when they are presenting the information, financial information is a very emotional topic of conversation in the divorce process. Children, home, and money. And home also correlates with the money. But the money aspect, and when you have a neutral party presenting it in a fashion that is neither one side or the other, it really keeps the emotional aspect of it at bay.
So do they suggest what should be done then financially?
Well, we
That's
talk about
professional,
it.
or how does that work?
So the financial person collects the information. We as attorneys advocate different positions and talk to our clients and advise them as to what we think would be in their best interest. What are their concerns? Are their concerns long term? Are their concerns short term? Is it college? All different aspects, and we figure out how we can achieve that goal financially through the financial planner, and they will run all different scenarios to the point where everyone is comfortable with how it's going to end.
So great, it's all the same team. So tell me, is this cost effective overall? Is collaborative divorce tends to be less than litigation, more than mediation?
It falls probably in the middle.
Okay.
It's definitely not as much as litigation. Litigation can go up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is not going to happen in this process. It is more than mediation, but it is an effective use of your resources, meaning that you have the neutral, you have somebody to help you with the parenting plan, you have somebody who you have as an advocate to go to, so you're not uncertain about any decision you're making. You always have somebody in your corner who's not going to let you get yourself into a position that 2 years down the line you might not be so happy about. You feel protected in that sense.
So we have a viewer has asked a question about what values or personality traits maybe would you and your spouse need to be in a collaborative divorce situation? Is there any specific things that maybe people can self-identify and say, yeah, we're best for collaborative because we are what?
Well, I think collaborative can fit most people. There aren't too many cases, especially difficult cases I find, are best served in a collaborative process because of the help of a mental health professional. Whereas if you put an unstable person into a litigation arena,
Oh my goodness.
it's going to only get worse for everybody involved. And the
Fuels
people
the
who,
fire.
yes, and the real people who suffer, even though the adults are going through a lot of harm, are the children.
Yes. Oh my
And so
goodness.
in terms of things that I think would be the best things to look forward to in terms of personality traits are people who are goal-oriented and can be respectful about the process and towards one another.
Another question is, how would someone prepare emotionally for collaborative divorce? How
Well,
would you?
I would like to say that it's very difficult to prepare emotionally for any kind of divorce. It's difficult. But if you find the right team, meaning your advocate, your attorney, that attorney should take the position of being, an emotional support and a legal support and hold your hand through the process, because it is an emotional process. But I have seen multitude of times people transform their perspectives on the whole process. And where they start off so insecure and sad, they're still sad at the end of the process, but it's a different kind of sad. It's a sad that even though the marriage has ended, they're still aware of the fact that the family is going to go on and succeed, and they have that optimistic view of the situation by the end. Whereas at the beginning, it's just so overwhelming. And your job as an attorney and the whole team process really helps lift that weight off people and allows them to see that this is navigable and that you can succeed. And it is a process that will work towards your needs and goals.
That's so interesting, because I was going to say, I feel like when you hear collaborative divorce, you think like, oh, you're walking and holding hands with your spouse, and you're like, let's make. It's not necessarily that at all.
No.
You're just thinking this would be the best way, best for my family, best for the whole situation, and let's make this work. And you still have an attorney advocating strongly for you,
Yes.
and they do as well. And are there ever any problems with that with one attorney? I mean, does that usually work? People who are falling under the collaborative divorce umbrella will work okay together.
Well, I mean, you do have to make sure that you work well with the other attorney that is going to be on the other side. But most people in the area, I find, are wonderful people to be working with, especially since they are of the perspective of a collaborative minded practice, and attorneys who are embracing that as an option have a different perspective on the situation as a whole.
So I've now been asking friends and people
Yes.
I know about their experiences with collaborative, and I know of a couple that they fell out of the process. They had the two lawyers, financial neutral, but no mental health professional neutral as part of the team. And it sounds like that was a big problem, because I'm not sure each member of the divorcing process really had gotten themselves emotionally prepared, right, for the
Right.
process.
Well, there is a reason why it's a team approach like that, because you really do need every single part of the team in place for it to be successful.
But I don't think most people know that. You want to look into the
Right,
camera and
sorry.
say, this is what you need.
What you need for a collaborative divorce is to have faith in your team, have a full team, and that they fully embrace what a collaborative practice is, which means you each have your advocate, you have a financial neutral, and you have a mental health professional. And that is what really makes a successful team for divorce, because it's not just a financial issue. It never is. It started off emotional and it ends emotionally. So if you don't take care of those things, you can talk about money till the cows come home,
But a lot of times they're using money
as a
for
control
emotional
things and everything else, and you sometimes need to look a little deeper than just the
Yeah.
finances.
And using it to punish one another is not good either.
No.
So finding ways through it is so important.
And the attorneys need it sometimes as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
You know, the attorneys sometimes need the mental health professional to explain what's going on, because that's not our area of expertise. And that really does help process the situation and opens
move
up
things along.
And it also opens up the lines of communication with you and the spouse and your client. You know, we're having a complete dialogue with one another in these meetings. It's not just me sitting there talking at the other attorney. I'm talking to the spouse. The spouses are talking to one another. Everyone is talking. And that's what really differentiates the process as well, is communication, the investment in the process, and the expertise that are involved.
It sounds so healing, and believe me, I've had couples leave my office and they decide to divorce, and then they go straight into litigation, and there's so many bad feelings and so much upset and sadness and whatnot that never really gets soothed or calmed down, and it only just sort of rises and gets worse, and eventually you get to go through this litigated divorce, and everybody's bruised and sad and angry in the end, and worth a lot less money.
I was gonna say-
And the kids are suffering to me this sounds like such
and it becomes public sometimes
It is public.
and messy.
Much
It
more
is very
Oh.
messy, and that's the nice
Yeah.
thing about a collaborative divorce, is that it's completely confidential.
Let's see, we've got one gentleman saying call or text me because he wants to talk about the, I don't know what it is. Okay, and
Coming in this afternoon.
Yeah. Later on. But so we have, there's so much in here that I don't think most of us here in Connecticut really realize. And maybe in California and
Right.
Canada, this
Yes.
is much
So
more
in
common.
other areas of the country, in Illinois it got started, in California, collaborative divorce is a much stronger practice. Long Island has a very strong practice.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and Fairfield County has some. Hartford area of Connecticut has a strong practice as well. And Fairfield County is just starting to really
Embrace this.
and recognize it as a viable option.
Mhm.
And you were saying before about the litigation, Trevor, that no one wins in litigation.
Mhm.
You know, everyone's like, I want to go to court, I want to win, I want to tell my story. But the only people who really win, in my opinion, are the attorneys. And I'm not to say that there aren't cases that are appropriate for litigation. There are. But in order to harm somebody, no one's going to win.
No. And it really truly sets you up for the rest of your life. And if you really think about it, you go through litigation, your children are a mess. That's not supportive of their emotional resiliency, which again, we know it's not self-esteem anymore. It's, are they emotionally resilient? You go through litigation, you're really just throwing fire at each other. The kids are trying not to choose sides. And, well, that whole thing can get to be a mess. And the children really are damaged. Everybody's damaged in the end. So to me, this is so much more healing and supportive and positive and hopeful.
Yes.
And again, I like to tell my clients, however you divorce is how things are going to roll forward. So if there's a lot of negative, sad, terrible energy, that's going to roll forward. It's going to be really hard for you to have a new relationship that person coming in and watching this mess is going to get pulled into all that terrible stuff that got left over.
Yes.
So to me, this is in a way of soothing a lot of those bad feelings and doing it in a way that's, again, collaborative and positive and supportive and growing.
You're still a family in the end, and you might not be married anymore, and the marriage is over, but you're always a family, and you're going to have life events with these people for the remainder of the life of your children, and hopefully they're wonderful experiences, and they can be holiday meals together, weddings, graduations, birthdays, and this allows for that to remain positive instead of bone of contention and something that your children are stressing over.
So you really do help people.
I do help
You
people.
do.
Yes, that was what I wanted to do, and so I guess yes, I am
Full circle.
doing it. Yes.
And when I'm hearing like anything else, people what they really just need the most is respect. And
They
this
do.
seems like a way to get some respect during a really difficult process, or
Yes.
feel like you were respected
And
terms of
heard.
what's important and
heard.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does allow for a divorce with the least amount of pain as possible.
And that is a gift. Seriously.
So I think it's so great that we shared this, and what I would like to do is, in the future, as we get some questions, follow up, maybe some case kind of questions, we can do something
That'd be
again
wonderful.
and
Love
talk
it.
about this, because I think this is something that so many people were unaware of.
We're getting a
Or
couple
kinda like-
thumbs up from
Yeah.
Sally Smith and Christopher Knell. And there's a lot more. We're going to actually be posting. This is Erica made this up for us, which is kind of not a graph, but a metric on what the difference is between what you can
It's
expect.
a layout of what the difference is between mediation,
Mhm.
litigation, and collaborative divorce, and what different
Mhm.
details are mostly important to people: the privacy, the cost, what's involved, the lawyer's roles.
Oh, one more question.
Oh,
Length
yes.
of time. Is this shorter, longer, mediation, litigation, or
I
in the
would
middle?
say it is a client-driven timeline,
Okay.
meaning that if the clients want to get this resolved in a relatively fast process, it will get resolved quickly.
Mhm.
If they decide to drag it out, it will be a longer process. But it's generally between, as I said before, if you're going to have the whole team meetings, it's around 5 to 6 meetings. So assuming you're having one every 2 to 3 weeks, you can
Move this
resolve
forward
things
fast.
forward. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of making time, which
And you-
sometimes is difficult.
One last question, because I know there's a lot of confusion
Yes.
about this. Cooperative divorce versus collaborative, and you needed to tell me the difference between those two. So
And conscious uncoupling.
Yeah.
Well, this is
I heard that, like, is
yes,
that
this is basically conscious uncoupling, which is what it is. If I was going to describe collaborative is a conscious.
So that's what they were doing.
Yes,
with it,
probably.
Of course, at the setting the
Probably,
trend.
yes,
hope so.
yes. So it is what
Mm-hmm.
is commonly referred to as that. Cooperative divorce is pretty much litigation,
okay.
because you're just trying to work things out and settle a case. There's no confidentiality.
Mhm.
There's no nobody involved other than you, your attorney. There's no communication. There are no neutral parties, mental health professionals, or anybody else involved. And if it doesn't work out in terms of trying to settle it, you're going to court.
Mhm.
So it's just it's a part of the litigation process, because all litigation starts with trying to negotiate something, but there's no guarantee, and all the other team aspects of collaborative are not involved in it. So
So there's a real difference. So
Yes.
collaborative is the team. You get your
Right.
financial neutral, your mental health professional, 2 lawyers.
yes,
Cooperative is really just 2 lawyers going.
figuring things out.
Figuring things out.
Hopefully they
Right.
don't go to court.
Great.
But
One more question. Okay.
Yes.
So what in your experience, the successful collaborative divorce, 2 to 3 key traits and behaviors that make them a success? And I'm talking about the couple. How could they think about behaving, thinking, maybe questions? What do you suggest if somebody's about to get divorced? How do they prepare, come in and talk to you?
First, you call.
Yeah.
And
Which we will
right.
share how to call you. because
First, you call,
you're one of us.
and basically, I explain to them that this process is a wonderful process. That for most people, this is a great way to go forward. They need to have goals. They need to care about their family and moving forward. And yet part of the process when we first meet as a team is setting those goals. So explaining to them that they need to think about what they want and where they want their future to look like, or what they want their future to look like, and that's what this is about. So it's getting not past the anger, but focusing on other things other than the anger, because the anger is going to be there and that will dissipate. I'm sure you can speak to that, and it changes, but that we're here to help them and be supportive. And if you want to go through the divorce process in a supportive manner with a team behind you, this is the way to do it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Any more questions, Jill?
I think it's excellent, and I'm sure I'll think of 100 when we leave, and we'll hear from so many people. So
Yes.
it'd be great to have a follow-up for the questions that we get on
Great.
this too, if you're
I'd love
good
to
with
do that. That'd be wonderful.
So Erica, we will post your information, how to contact
Thank you.
and put this show on YouTube and play it several times, and we hope you'll share it because it's a lot of really important information for people who are in the area, want to contact you, or people who are in any part of the country, Canada, and anywhere you can find
Yes.
attorneys who are
Collaboratively
beginning
trained.
collaboratively
And there's
trained.
organizations, the IACP is an international organization that does training for collaborative professionals. There are organizations in Connecticut, and you can find collaborative attorneys.
So look through that, or when you call the attorney, ask, are they, so
Yes,
that they
and,
get a name.
yes, and I always have a list of people and available. You know, you always need to work with somebody else in this process. So there are always other attorneys in the area as well. So once you find one collaborative attorney, you're likely to find many more.
Okay, and we love the team, and we have a great mental health professional
Yes,
sitting
we
right
do.
here, right?
And I want to say a shout out to
I've got
Sal.
half the team here.
So Sal Lezione, who is texting, is talking about the possible debate. So Jill and I are looking to organize a debate with some of our candidates, which could be coming up. So stay tuned before our next election. So we've got lots of things up our sleeves. So
We have some really great
we have some great things
shows
next
coming
week.
up.
We have
Next week we're going a little lighter. It's
fun.
fall fashion time, and we're gonna have a little critique of the Emmys fashion.
Super fun.
I'm sure all positive from some stylists that we know and some ideas for some of the fall fashion, and then we have a hot issue to discuss that has come up a few times, which is kind of like how chummy can you be with your very good friends, partners, or spouses? Is it okay to, be friends with them on your own? What if can you text them and say, I thought you'd like to hear about this? We've all kind of encountered this, and sometimes it's really nothing, sometimes it's touchy, sometimes it gets really serious.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have been talking about that, and that's something that we think you might find interesting, and we hope you weigh in on that too.
Yeah, the girlfriend thing, like what's the girl code, what's the relationship with your friend or their boyfriend or their husband?
Right. And
Be
how
careful.
so often couples go out for dinner, they separate guys over
Oh.
there, girls over there, when you really
Yes.
just want to, some of those people are your good friends and you just want to have some laughs and talk with them. And maybe if that was more common, people wouldn't be so,
Maybe there'd be less divorce.
maybe. Maybe.
Anyway.
I don't know. It's a hot issue, I think, a hot button issue.
Yeah.
Something interesting to discuss.
So we want to thank Erica Hochman for helping us out and
Thank you,
teaching us
ladies.
about
Thank
collaborative
you so much
divorce.
for coming here and talking with me.
I think this is fantastic information for us
Thank
to
you.
share with our audience and hopefully way beyond. 'Cause this is
And
cool.
Erica and I have written an article together. We're not sure where we're going to be publishing it, but we're working on that right
Yes.
now, and we're building it as we speak. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people need to learn about this particular process.
Definitely.
So,
Great.
really
Thank you.
interesting. All right, everybody, have a safe, good week. Make sure Florence doesn't evacuate if you have to. So
Don't
we're
be
thinking-
stubborn.